Yeah, back in the 60s and the 70s, when I attended regular church service, and I was a Baptist. I even had one preacher from Abilene, Texas. Last time I checked, he was still there. His name was Greenway. He would call it the First Baptist Church of Jerusalem. He would presume to think that Peter and all them cats were Baptist. Well, maybe so. Maybe so. Definitely, I think the Apostle Paul might have been a Lutheran. But they had a term called lost. That's what they would call it, lost. What they meant by that is that without Jesus Christ in their heart, in your heart, that you believed that Jesus Christ died for your sins, you were lost. And the Apostle Paul, in his writings, in Romans 11, I believe, but I could be misquoting, he would say that there would be people he described the condition as being in a reprobate mind, and that were unable to do the convenient thing. They would no longer do what is convenient. In other words, these people were just lost, which is a good word, which I think is similar to cognitive dissonance, the one I discussed the other day. For instance, I'm talking to a fella, he's of the African American persuasion, and we're discussing the fight game and so forth, and I bring up Ray Leonard and Roberto Duran, how they came to be friends again. Then I mention Howard Cosell and Muhammad Ali, and then I mention Joe Frazier and say that Joe Frazier hated Muhammad Ali to the end. And he comes back and says, I didn't know that Howard Cosell hated Muhammad Ali like that. And I said, no, it was Joe Frazier. And then he come up with this story about how Joe Frazier and him had made up, and that they had become friends, and so forth and so on. And he even went so far as to say that Muhammad Ali gave Joe some money. That's what he said. And I looked it up, and I think somewhere in Philadelphia, as Rush Limbaugh would say, Joe and Muhammad hugged. But this guy wanted to believe, he couldn't believe so much that two black guys could hate each other, that he had to come up with a story, because he's basically a nice guy. Basically was a nice guy. And then I have my son, who I slept on his couch for the better part of 4 or 5 months, that I went out there to California to try to make it. And it was a complete, as Ole Anderson called it, it was the shits. It was the shits. I had like 6 jobs. None of them were no good. One of them was okay. At least it was fun. For the time I put in, I made pretty good money. But it was the shits. And he did not, the whole friggin' time we were out there, he didn't sit down and watch a movie with me once. He had friends over and he watched it with them, but he spent no time with me. He didn't want to talk. He didn't want to get to know me. He just wanted to and then when I left, I called him because, I had a check sent to him. My last check was only like $240. And I still don't know whether he cashed the check or what happened to the money, because he didn't answer me. So he just wants me to believe that I'm the same asshole I used to be. He didn't want to change his opinion. He just wanted everything to stay like that and stay there with his marginal-looking girlfriend and his little dog and go on with his happy little life. He doesn't want it to be disturbed, and he's lost. Sorry. I would say that. I'm not one of these people who lives in a delusional state. Finally, have a buddy on the internet that we've been discussing issues with, and he came across and said that he thought that Barack Obama was a great president, and he chronicled how he had closed Gitmo, how he was closing in on a deal with Iran, how he had gotten everybody health care. He didn't mention that he'd saved General Motors, but he did save General Motors, which was quite an accomplishment. He had turned the economy around. I mean, hell, the stock market was at the famous 666, as Mark Faber said. He says 666, like that was an accident. And now, what is it, like 2,300, 2,400? I know the NASDAQ is over 5,000. So he's, you know, and people, I saw signs in Texas, $600,000 houses. Okay? And I would say that gentleman is the least lost because he is doing a conventional analysis, and most people think that way, that's good enough. That's good enough. Well, I don't think it is good enough. I don't think it's good enough that we as a nation spend $1 trillion to build an airplane to fight the Soviet Union. I didn't mince words. I meant the Soviet Union. Because we're still thinking there's a Soviet Union to fight. And there wasn't a Soviet Union when there was a Soviet Union. They did not want to attack us. That was an illusion then, just like it is now. I mean, if you get $1 trillion airplane, bro, somebody's making a lot of friggin' money. I mean, think about it. So we have $1 trillion airplane, and we have little kids in Indonesia and China working for pennies a day, and the guy that owns the plant is making dollars a day, while some kid in Chicago goes in and pays $150 for a pair of sneakers that have Michael Jordan pictures on them. And Michael hasn't played in 20 years. I mean, bless his heart, you know, that he's still that popular this long after he quit. Shows what a great athlete he was. Great. I find that whole system unacceptable. Completely, totally unacceptable. We can do better on the planet Earth. We can do better as a species. And I would think the President of the United States can do better. And that's my take. Peace out.